doing our segment on women issues. Today, we're actually talking about school. We're talking about what does it look like to have challenges in mental health with Black women. But we're going to take it a little deeper and even talk about it in the context of schools. So we're excited to have one of our experts with us, Lady Darlene Bryant. You've heard from her amazing husband, Bishop Darrell Bryant, a few weeks ago, and now we have her on today. We're excited to get started, but before we do, we are asking you to engage with us today by putting into the chat box or the comment section who you are, where you're from, where you're tuning in from, whether you're tuning in from LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, or YouTube Live. We definitely want to acknowledge you. So please do engage with us, put it in the chat box, and also share this out. We are able to get to reach as many people when the message is shared. So please don't keep the message to yourself, but go ahead and hit the share button if you're on Facebook and share it out to your networks. We'll get started in just a few moments. And again, thank you so much for sharing this space with us and for joining us. We'll get started in just a few moments. All right, let's get started. I'm really excited about our guest today, Lady Darlene Bryant. As I mentioned, she's the wife of Bishop Darrell Bryant and such a phenomenal woman of grace, an expert in the fields of teaching and social work. And she's going to be talking to us today about Black woman mental health. This is again October, so it's the month that's dedicated to all women issues. And today we want to focus specifically on Black women mental health because we know that Black women are often at higher risk of developing mental health challenges and facing mental health issues, and also not necessarily seeking the help that they need. So we think it's important that we highlight these type of topics so that we can raise awareness, and hopefully you that are watching are able to get the help and support and motivation that you need. We want to empower you to make healthy decisions for yourselves and your families and for your lives. So, Lady Darlene Bryant, welcome. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely. So, I want to formally introduce Lady Darlene Bryant. She was born and raised in Clinton, North Carolina, graduated in 1995 with a degree in public administration. Clinton, NC is also the place that she met, married, and started her family with her husband, Bishop Darrell Bryant. Always wanting to help people, Lady Bryant began her career as a social worker, assisting single mothers to attain either a higher education or gainful employment. And then she later on started working in adult protective services. She was the mother of three young girls at the time. Mrs. Bryant decided to become a stay at home mom. That's amazing. After volunteering in the classroom, Mrs. Bryant fell in love with teaching. The now mother of five became a North Carolina certified teacher, in which she has served in the public school system for over 14 years. Due to her dedication and love of learning, Mrs. Bryant facilitated several after school tutoring sessions for students at risk. During her career, she was a lead mentor for new and beginning teachers. Continuing that love of helping people and teaching, Mrs. Bryant is currently extending that dedication and experience within the Bible Church of Christ Theological Institute, which I happen to be a graduate of, and the
Yay!
science behind her. So, Ms. Bryant, we're so happy to have you. To anything you want to share that wasn't captured in your introduction, I would love to hear it.
I would just say, it sounded short as far as my bio, but just think as you were reading, and I'm sitting here thinking back, just the many things that we were doing during that time period. Having three young girls at the time, working in as a social worker, and then even moving on into adult protective services. that, I never thought about how that at one time, that change, that experience would shape my life forever. Like I said, I always like working with young women, especially when they felt like, they were being disenfranchised. But
Yeah.
then moving into adult protective services just kind of allowed me to get that spectrum that, hey, you're raising three women yourself.
Oh yeah.
So, and then moving into the teaching forum, it just, I don't know, when you were just reading that, it was like, wow. It's like, man. So, but yeah, we were very, very active, busy at that time with not just the professional side as far as social work and teaching, but also the background as far as with the ministry doing things as well, as far as, help assisting and helping people. So it was a very busy time at at that particular time.
Sounds like you, as a family, were just like that power family that gave to the community.
We
And
tried. I will honestly say that, yes. Yeah.
that's amazing. And I'd love to hear more about what that was like in ministry. And I'm sure there may have been even some correlation between what you noticed in women that you worked with and with the adult protective services and also women in ministry.
Yeah, anytime you're working in any form of protective service is always a very stressful and high time. So that whole experience in itself kind of brings a lot more of how that mental health piece has been going on for years, but it's
Mhm.
like now finally is coming to the forefront. And having the ministry, the Christian background, it kind of amplified all of that even the more. You're working
Mhm.
with people on your job in a professional, business forum, but then taking that, extending that into your personal life, because anytime that you're working in ministry, it has to become personal. I
Mhm.
don't care what it is that you're doing. If it doesn't become personal, then you don't have a passion for it. And if you don't have a passion for anything, you're really not going to be you're not going to be beneficial to anyone.
Yeah.
So having that Christian background, doing the work not just at work, but then also doing it in a personal forum, yeah, it was very impactful. And I think back now how even as we raised our family within it, how it kind of impacted them even the more, having the girls, and the boys see how helping one
Mhm.
another during those times is not just about, let me get mine
Mhm.
and, and I'm good, but,
Right.
returning the favor, and, or as they say, paying it forward and helping others. So that time period, it was very impactful. Um, Knowing, to express to those women or to those that were being exploited, as we say, to let
Mhm.
them know that there were things that I could help with from a professional standpoint, but then
Mhm.
also giving them that word of
Oh, yeah.
encouragement from a Christian side.
Mhm.
It was like I said, it was very impactful for us at that time. Yeah.
It sounds, I can vision when you're talking about it, women that were uplifted and empowered through the ministry and through your career. And it sounds like it's such a passion for you. I think one of the things that you said is when you're dealing with people in ministry, it's personal. I think when you're dealing with people in general, it's personal. When
Has to.
you're has to be, right? Because there's no way to be impersonal and you deal with people. It's just
Right.
you can't. You have to bring your heart to the table, and if your heart is not at the table, then probably shouldn't be in that business or in
Exactly.
that field. You have to be called to the field. We talk about it a lot, to the field of social work, to the field of empowering people. It really is a grace, and it's really seems like and feels like you have that grace over your life, Lady Bryant.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Great. So we're today, as mentioned a little earlier, and as you can hear, Lady Bryan has been doing this work for so many years, empowering communities, empowering women, vulnerable and disadvantaged, and also training her children to do the same. One of her daughters, I heard, is actually studying her master's in public health, and we might be able to get her on next year. So we're excited about even the legacy she's leaving through her daughters. It's absolutely amazing. Um, so today we're talking about Black women mental health. And I actually wanted to read a quick paragraph that I was able to gain from an article that I thought was really relevant to today's topic. I mean, it reads that Black women face significant disparities in mental health care. And understanding why these differences occur requires an appreciation for not only the multiple roles that Black women face in society, but also for the racial and social injustices that they have historically faced. Notably, the outlook for Black women often depends on the perspective. I want to highlight this one perspective because I think this one is the most relevant. Many mental health providers actually believe that Black women are the most disadvantaged people in the US because Black women often simultaneously are experiencing racism, sexism, and at times financial inequality. So I think just that right there is important to sort of just start us off on this talk. The consistent inadequacies and or inequities that Black women are faced with within society and within their role, not just being Black, but also being a woman and the challenges that comes with that. So I also want to highlight a recent special report on minority mental health that it was stated that too often women of color try to muscle their way through depression and anxiety. So I actually wanted to ask you, Lady Bryant, sort of what does that mean to you when you hear that, sort of in your role empowering women over the years, over the last few decades? When you hear that, what does it really mean to you? Women of color often try to muscle their way through depression and anxiety on their own. What do you make of that?
I completely agree with that statement that we muscle through, because a lot of the times, one of the things that you and I discussed earlier with Black women, when we express our emotions, and I can speak, I'm going to speak personally for myself because I can't speak about anybody else's situation more passionately than I can testify to what I know for me. um, as a Black woman, we're emotional, and I'm emotional. So there are times where I feel like when we try to express ourselves, it's always perceived as, we're being over dramatic, or, we're being too much, or, we're just emotionally all over the place. So sometimes, because when I feel like whenever we want to succeed, or when we are trying to do our best, we have to swallow those feelings of inadequacy or the feelings of depression, because we sometimes are gonna, it's like there's always a preconceived notion that if I show a weakness,
Mhm.
then it's like I'm already defeated, that we can't afford to show weakness as a Black woman. And
Mhm.
then it's almost like we're in a catch 22. We have to swallow, or hold our emotions in, because we don't want to be perceived as being the over dramatic woman, or we're just overly emotional, or you're too much. But then
Mhm.
it's like when we hold those things in, it's just we don't have a way of allowing it to come out. We don't have a way to vent, because when we do vent, or we
Mhm.
don't have a healthy place to
Mhm.
vent,
Mhm.
then we feel like we have to swallow it down. And anytime when you constantly hold something in, it's just building, and it's almost like eventually there is going to be volcanic activity. And
Mhm. Mhm.
so I feel like that's probably why, we, and used to, any type of mental health issues, back in the day, it had a stigma to it. You didn't want anybody to know that you were going through, because we always had to feel like we were strong. We couldn't afford to break down. We
That's
couldn't
right.
show anyone our weakness.
Yeah.
So no, we're not going to go to the doctor. And
Mm.
if they did try to say something like, maybe, you're going through depression, I don't want to hear that. I can't afford
Mhm.
to hear that. I can't
That's right.
afford to break down right now.
Mm.
I'm the person that's keeping the household together. And that's,
Mhm.
even if you are a single parent, or if you have a spouse or mate that's with you, you
Mhm.
still can't afford to break down. As there used to be a saying, when mama's not happy, the whole house is not happy,
Mhm.
or when
Mhm.
mama's sick, the whole house shuts down.
Mhm.
And to
That's
some
right.
degree, that's, I mean,
It's
that's
very
true.
true.
Yeah.
Especially in the Black family.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons why, yeah, there's disparity there, because, one, we don't want to be stigmatized with the person that has a mental instability,
Right.
from any venue. We don't want that. And
Yeah.
we couldn't afford to allow our families to see that weakness.
Yeah.
So, you just hold those emotions in, and after a while it blows up.
Mhm.
And so then when we finally do blow up, not intending to blow up,
Yeah.
but here it is, oh, you just an angry Black woman, or, you just
Mhm.
overly emotional, or,
Mhm.
so it's like, we're with kind of that group that were caught between a rock and a hard place.
Mm. I mean, that was just the way you convey that, Lady Bryant, was just perfection. And it's so interesting. We were talking in a studio a few minutes before we went live about that, the fact that this is the issue that Black women are facing, that double jeopardy, that we don't have. It's not really safe for us to express ourselves in the world, because when we do, we're seen as angry or aggressive or hostile, and
Yeah.
so we're often misunderstood. And sometimes we're not. We are passionate people, and and we can't pull that passion back. We can't help it, right? We're not, obviously, not being disrespectful or anything, but we are passionate. So sometimes when we talk, we might just talk with a little extra flavor, talk with a little
Yeah.
extra, maybe a little head movement, or just like, let me tell you, like a little hand, and people get a little nervous about it
Yeah,
because they
girl, let me
feel
tell
like,
you. Oh, she's being disrespectful. No, that's not it.
it's my passion, right? I'm really,
Right.
I'm really passionate about this topic, or I'm really passionate about what I'm talking about, and so it's coming out this way. And so oftentimes we are consistently hyper criticized, right, for our expression, and it is very over. It's very draining to be a Black woman and to have to be consistently criticized in the eye of society, especially a Black woman in leadership, right? We're
Right.
Black women in leadership, so now we're really under high scrutiny because people are watching everything that we do. I mean, we're under the
Everything.
microscope,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And
you
even
can't
more
really
so
afford. Yep.
being a leader within you think about being a leader within your job, and a leader within even your, I think about when you said that, being the pastor's wife. you
Mhm.
know, it's like every little thing. You can't afford to show any type of weakness,
Right.
because I even think about even the years when we first started out, and my husband was, the presiding elder over a location. It was like you couldn't afford to show any type of discord, as far as how I was feeling. So it was like a
Mhm.
lot of times when I was dealing with stress from work, dealing with the cases that would come across, or the cases that I had to investigate
Mhm.
as a social worker. And it's like, I come home, and I want to talk to my husband about it, and
Right.
and he would listen, you know but it's
Mhm.
like it would just wear you down, like you
Mhm.
said, mentally, because you want to be able to express yourself. But then, growing up traditionally in a church, well, you just gotta pray
Mhm.
about it, give it to God.
Mhm.
And I'll be the first to say, most definitely, yeah, do
Mhm.
that. But
Mhm.
there's also a side where, I've got to be able to show some type of emotion
That's right.
when it comes to those situations. But you just couldn't. And as a leader, that makes it even more stressful, that you're having to put on this facade that I'm a brick wall, I can take it all, and it doesn't affect me.
Oh, yeah.
When on the inside you feel like jello, like you're
Mhm.
just getting ready to break apart.
Mhm.
So, and
Mhm.
as a leader, I don't care what platform you're on, that makes it even more stressful.
Yeah. It's so heartbreaking. I'm actually thinking of a woman that she was actually our president. She was the president of I raised of board of directors. She actually passed away, I want to say maybe last year or the year before last. And I remember she's a Black woman, and she actually took under her wings her grandchildren as her own kids.
Mhm.
And I remember she carried so
Mhm.
much stress, so much weight. And I would just look at her like, it would just break my heart. And then, you say that, the things that we often say as Black women, I got to do what I got to do. But that got to do what I got to do sometimes will literally send you to your grave before your time.
Mhm.
And it's not okay. It's not okay to have to do what you got to do at the expense of your life. It's not okay. And I think we have to come from under these things that are placed on us by society to say, well, you can take it, you're strong, you're resilient. I have been, Lady Bryant, I am going to tell you, for the last 2 years, I said, do not call me a strong Black woman. I don't want to hear it. I am a woman, because that is a cover up to put more on me and to say you can take it, you're resilient. And said
Mhm.
we are resilient because we have to be. We are strong because we have to be in a world that doesn't allow us to be weak or to allow us to show vulnerability.
Right.
So I've been on this. I said, don't do it. Don't call me. My staff know, they laugh at me. I'm like, don't you dare. Don't call me strong Black woman. I'm a woman just like the next one, right? And so I think just starting, sometimes our ability to be human or to show our humanity is often taken from us.
Mhm.
Because in reality, showing expression and showing emotion is a part of the human experience.
Exactly.
If you can't do that, we have a huge issue.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with you. And it's sad, even speaking about when you made the comment about the president that you had, that she ended up taking on the role as parent for her grandchildren. And it's sad that we're seeing that more and more and more, every single day. And that kind of gravitated into when I did become started teaching, started seeing that more and more. And you have these grandmothers that are, that are raising, that are having to now take on the role now of being mom again. that
Mhm.
that task in itself in today's time is even more, as you stated, it's even more stressful, because
Mhm.
there are things that, I think about, my mom, for an example. She raised me, her and my dad, they raised me. But if right now, if something were to happen to myself or my husband, to think about my mother or my mother-in-law having to take our two young boys and become
Mhm.
their parents,
Mhm.
that's even more stress, because there are things that are in today's time that was
Yeah.
nowhere what they had to deal with back in
Nope.
those days. So
Mhm.
that's
Oh yeah.
more things that you're impounding on that person as well. So
Mhm.
yes, it's more stressful. And but we don't look at that as as closely as we should, especially when, and again, I can only say it from my experience, that it's more, I saw that more with my Black parents
Mhm.
than
Mhm.
I did with some of my Spanish parents or my white parents. That you had more, not saying that it was not there, because it was, but it was just our number
Yeah.
was higher than the other ethnic groups. And
Mhm.
it was just, I don't know, that's, like I said, again, for the Black grandmother, that's
Mhm.
even more
Oh
stress
yeah.
that's being impounded on us again.
Mm.
So, and we don't look at it from that standpoint.
I
I
just
have,
actually I'm sorry, go ahead, Lady Bryant.
because I had a parent, a grandmother that I had to work with coming off of the pandemic, to show
Mhm.
her how to to maneuver Google Classroom
Mm.
so she could help the granddaughter, because she was like the granddaughter knew of ways to manipulate, grandma, I don't have any homework, I'm trying to, and they don't know how to maneuver with the electronics, because that wasn't their generation. And
That's
so
right.
that's, yeah, and they couldn't handle it.
That's right. I'm laughing because I think there, if I remember, there was this thing that kids were doing where they were setting up their background so it looked like they were sitting there in class, but in reality actually wasn't there the whole time. So they
Yeah.
would do something like a camera and I'm not sure how they did it, but yeah. So to the grandmothers that have no idea, they're just they're
Yeah.
clueless. And
Hmm.
you know, you said black grandmothers. You've seen that more with your black families, and it's interesting. So I sort of asked myself a question as you were speaking. Why is that? And what came to me is that black families, black grandmothers have to step in because we're the black fathers. A lot of
Yes.
times the black fathers are not there, they're absent because typically if you have one parent that's not able to take care of the kids, you would assume the other parent. But if that parent is not there, now it's being shifted to the grandmother.
Right.
So there's so many complex issues going on in the black family, from fatherless fathers being absent to now even moms being
Right.
absent.
Right. And that's even, and that absence can be from, can stem from different scenarios. Because as in the classroom, I knew I had some grandmothers that were having to help, not because, let's say, that the mom was completely out of the picture, but mom was working. And and a lot of the times, that was one of the things that we have to realize, that not every not every mother, or not even every father for that, everybody don't have an 8 to 5 job.
That's right. That's right.
So there were situations where mom had to, or dad had to, get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. So, but
Mhm.
then who's gonna put Judah on the bus? Who's gonna
Exactly.
pick them up from school?
Mhm.
And that was even an issue, that to some degree, kind of varied between states, because every state has different policies of how things are done, just based off of resources, um or the way the policy, how things are. But it's like, because like in North Carolina, mom gets up at 4 o'clock, 4:30 to go to work. you know you don't want anybody to know that I had to leave them there at the house and they had to put
Right.
themselves on the bus. you
Right.
know Whereas in the city, they're walking to school, because
Mhm.
the bus is not for everybody.
Right.
So there are instances where mom is not in the picture, not because she's completely removed because
Mhm.
of whatever, what other situations that may have, but because she's working. And so, but
Right.
regardless of what the situation is, you're having those black grandmothers that are having to step in to take on this role.
Yeah. And that actually goes into everything you're talking about, right? Like, so what causes black mothers or black women to develop these mental health challenges? You've been talking about them the entire time. The financial inequity, or just being in
Yes.
poverty or low socioeconomic status, that can lend to chronic stress, which then can lead to mental health challenges such as major depressive disorder, anxiety disorder, and so forth. And
Mhm.
so, when you don't have the ability to access those resources because either you don't have the financial means or you just don't have the access, then you are forced to deal with these loads of chronic stress,
Mhm.
and to live with it and sort of just try to figure it out and do things like you said. I had to leave the kids home, to not advocating this at all, disclaimer, to go to work. But these are just the real decisions that black women are often faced with, making these kind of decisions that they shouldn't have to, when they have to decide these things. And this impedes, this really does impact their well-being. And it has not just mental health effects but physiological effects. There are a lot of research now out there that's showing how black women, and this actually leads into something we talked about as well, where black women are actually not they're being affected physically in their bodies.
Right.
So cancer or other infirmities and illnesses and sicknesses,
Migraines.
migraines.
Yes.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I just had a huge migraine yesterday.
Yeah.
Pull myself together and balance myself, and just, in full transparency, I had to sit for a moment and just like relax, and and prayer is good as well also, but I just had to balance. I was just like, what in the world? Just
Hmm.
loads of, and it will show up in migraines, blood pressure,
Yes.
right? Heart populations. How many people are dealing with populations of heart? of their heart, right? Or low blood pressure or diabetes or
Yes.
eating disorders, eating too much because of depression or
Mm-hmm.
eating less because you're so stressed.
Right. And and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, is that, because as the Black woman, we can't afford to break down. So
That's
here
right.
it is, we can't show that weakness, you know. So now here it is, I'm at work, I had to choose between the safety of my child over the necessity of putting food on the table, or making sure that we had a roof over our heads, or that
Oh
the
yeah.
lights were on. So,
Oh yeah.
and it doesn't take away the fact that, yes, okay, I'm at work, but in the back of my mind, I'm
Mhm.
sitting here saying, okay, I wonder, did they get up in time to
Mhm.
get to school? Did they get up in time to fix them something to eat? Okay, if they fix them something to eat, do they turn the stove off? So it's
Mhm.
like there's just so much that's compounded on
Mhm.
you every single day, that
Mhm.
it's one thing that we think about mental health as being just something of the mind.
Oh yeah.
But as what you just stated, and what we've all alluded to, that it goes beyond just a mental thing
Oh yeah.
now, because it does affect your body physically.
Oh yeah.
When you're dealing, like you said, when you're dealing with depression, it could go either way. Some people, because they're depressed, they overeat.
Mhm.
Because some people are depressed, they don't eat. And
Mhm.
either one of those, whichever spectrum you find yourself on, there's
Mhm.
other medical repercussions that lead to that imbalance.
Oh yeah.
So you talked about like the migraines, because I'm dealing with so much going on, with not knowing the decisions that we have to make, or the
Mhm.
decisions that we're indirectly forced to do.
Right.
Now I've got migraine headaches, or my body is aching,
Mm.
so it goes beyond, mental health goes beyond just something that's in the mind.
Oh yeah.
It affects you physically.
It's so true, Lady Bryant. I'm just thinking about how many Black women that I know whose bodies early 30s start breaking down from
Hmm.
chronic stress. And so so the thing is, when we don't get the help that we need, and we're dealing with these challenges and these mental health issues, and we're either ashamed to talk about it
Yeah.
because we feel like we're going to be judged, or maybe we just don't know who to go to talk about it. Maybe we haven't really found someone that we trust that won't judge us and say, what's wrong with you? Pull yourself together, oh girl. Like why you don't have faith? What's the problem, right?
Right.
You ain't got no faith, you don't believe God, all of the
Mhm.
the things that we hear. And in reality, that person really is in dire need of help. And so, if we don't get the help that we need, we don't seek the help, we can't find that safe place to have expression, then it will affect our bodies. And we can't afford that because we have children, right? That we have
Right.
to take care of. We have communities that we're working on empowering, and we have a life to live. And so we have to find ways to cultivate that balance for Black women. I actually wanted, Lady Bryant, really quickly. I thought this is really interesting. I want to highlight. I know we're over time right now, but I'm having so much fun with you, and I don't want to stop.
I was gonna say,
Oh,
I just looked at the time. Oh man.
but we got to go. So we're gonna wrap it up in just a few moments. But I thought this was really interesting. There was a study that was done by the name of a researcher named Richardson, who talks about the misdiagnosis of Black women seeking mental health care. And what was stated was that Black women are actually often misdiagnosed because of implicit bias and racist stereotypes of being angry Black women. And so, what he actually concluded was that when Black women are irritable, or that hyper just being irritable at times, sometimes that's actually not being irritable. They're actually showing signs of depression, and
Hmm.
they're being misdiagnosed. So sometimes it really is a real issue going on, but because of implicit bias, Black women are often misdiagnosed, or that anger is being misconstrued as something else. That's so dangerous. But I wanted you to weigh in on like what your thoughts are on that.
I agree with that. It is dangerous, because, like you said, and yet again, that puts us in that catch 22. When we have become more, as a Black woman, we become aware that, maybe I do need to seek help. Maybe I don't need to, keep swallowing or keep muscling through, as you said.
Yeah.
Maybe when we come to that realization and we do finally go to seek help, and then even the help that we seek already has a
Mm.
preconceived notion,
Right.
then we lose faith in that.
Wow.
It's like, okay, now that I finally said, okay, maybe I need to, go seek help about this. And I
Mhm.
sit down and I go and speak with someone, and they take the fact that I'm irritable, or the fact that I'm upset or whatever, you need to suck it up. Or as we used to say, suck it up, buttercup, or, you know, that used to be a saying we
Oh,
used to.
yes, that don't work.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's like when we finally go and seek help, we become aware that maybe there is something that that I do need to seek, to seek out. I can't do this on my own. But then when we finally go to those places, and they really don't want to help because they already have this preconceived notion about the Black woman,
Mhm.
because hey, we can't never break down. We are strong.
Mhm.
We don't have issues. Like you said, we're
Mhm.
the strong Black woman.
Mhm.
So, and then when we convey those weaknesses that we have,
Mhm.
it's diagnosed as, yeah, you're just angry.
Mm.
Are you angry because did your man leave you, or
Mhm.
stepping out on you, or
Mm.
oh, you're just upset because you didn't get the promotion on the job.
Mhm.
They don't
Mhm.
take it seriously. And
Right.
you have a lot of Black women that are crying out,
Mm.
and sometimes those ways that we're crying out may not be the conventional way,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's time for people to hear that cry.
Mm.
Like
Oh
you
my
stated
goodness.
earlier, when we get a little overly excited, and or I'm trying to express myself, and because you see my neck rolling or whatever, you
Mm.
assume I have an attitude. No,
Mhm.
just listen to what I'm
Mm.
saying, because a lot of the times it's not the words that are coming out of my mouth that you need to
Mhm.
be listening to. It's the other things that I'm trying to, that I'm silently crying out to you,
Mm.
but you don't see it.
Hear the silent cry of the
Yeah.
heart. That's so powerful. It's a lot of times we may not know how to express those weaknesses, right? But there's a cry inwardly that's coming from us, and we want people to hear it. So there might be Black women listening, I'm sure, right now, and they probably have that same silent cry right now, going through chronic stress and depression,
Mhm.
anxiety. Some may even feel like they're at the end of their rope, and
Excuse
they
me,
don't
and
know what to
Shaniqua, just what you
do.
just said, and that's it's dangerous, because when we finally do go seek help, and then the help kind of to some degree trying to throw it in our face, then that's dangerous, because then we as
Mhm.
Black women can start to feel helpless or
Oh yeah.
hopeless,
Oh
which
yeah.
leads into other desperate measures that,
Mm.
you know, I don't even want to say the word, but it's rampant, like with suicide,
Mhm.
because here it
Mhm.
is. I was crying out. I finally went to go seek professional help. And then
Mhm.
it's kind of like, as you stated, it's misdiagnosed.
Mhm.
And so now, okay, where do I go?
Right. Yeah.
It's scary.
That's really scary. And I'm thinking, even as we're social workers, and, shame on us if we did something like that. Like, shame on any social worker watching right now
Mhm,
that did something like that. Check your biases, check it, please.
mhm.
Especially if you're not a woman or a person of color, or a woman of color mainly. Check those biases. If you have clients that are women of color that are coming in, don't be so quick to misdiagnose or mislabel them or
Right.
misconstrue them, because they might really be crying out, and they're coming to you if they're crying out, right? Because research shows that Black women are half as likely to seek help when they're going through something. So if they actually got to the door and they're there, they don't need to be misdiagnosed. They need to
And
be
that's
helped.
why I love what you're doing here, because you're bringing it to the forefront for us, and it's not just for Black women, it's anyone that might tune in. You're bringing it to the forefront, and that's one of the things that I have found for myself. Things that helped me out was having a strong um, community of people that that did listen.
I
So
love it.
what you are doing is very commendable. I hope you don't take it lightly.
Oh, thank you, Lady.
The platform that you have here,
Thank you.
because as you said, there might be people that are, I hope there are people that are listening that might, with any of the fireside chats that you're doing, that might listen and might see themselves in someone that's talking and will reach out to, to assist someone else or to get assistance for themselves. So I hope you're not taking what you're doing lightly, because this, and I don't want to say this, but you're going to, but that's just showing how strong of a Black woman that you are.
You know,
because
that's so true.
because you're bringing it to light for others.
Oh my goodness. I received that. And that is music to my ears. Thank you so much, Lady Bryant. That's amazing. And I think it's really, it's real that when Black women are listening or people are listening, we want them to be able to see themselves in us. Because sometimes you feel like you're the only one, or you're too ashamed to speak out because you're like, they're gonna judge me. I don't want to be judged. So I'd rather just be quiet and sit in a corner and just suffer in silence.
Mhm.
No, we don't want you don't have to suffer in silence. There is a community of Black women, and women in general, or just people that care and that love people and that want to help. And so we're one of those women, and there's so many
Yeah.
others out there. But I think just closing here is we have to find ways, as you said, Lady Bryant, to create those communities and those spaces of healing, I like to call them, where Black women can let their hair down and talk about their feelings and emotions and do all the head movements
Right.
and to each other and just
And vent without worrying about being judged or
That's right.
being criticized or,
Mhm.
put down. We need that.
That's right.
We need that.
I love that so much. And there's so many ways we can do that. We can, I'm not sure what you're doing at the Bible Church of Christ, if there are women groups that you're hoping to host or you're doing right now. But there's so many ways that we can do that. At I Raise, we have spaces of healing. We do it mainly with our kids, but we're restarting it with our parents. So if you're interested in joining, if you're a young person or a parent and you want to be a part of a wellness or healing space, we'd love to welcome and invite you in. There's so many different ways to healing. We're breaking the traditional methods because the traditional methods are Eurocentric and we don't always heal that way. So we are finding our own ways of healing together as a collective. And so we invite you to be a part of that. Lady Bryant, you've been so pleasant. I appreciate you so much and so real, your authenticity and all that you're doing within your role for the people in New York now. um, just appreciate it. And I'll be out there. I'll be probably joining you guys. I think I'll probably be joining you next week. I'll probably see you next week. I
So
didn't make
please
it.
come out.
Yeah, I didn't make it last. I don't know. I think there was just too much going on, but I'll definitely, I owe you guys a visit. That's my home. So just shout out to the Bible Church of Christ for all that you're doing, to Bishop Darrell Bryan. Thank you for all the work and your leadership, and also to the Bible Church of Christ Theological Institute, a number of amazing classes that you can take. As I mentioned, I am an alumni of that institute,
Yes.
and I did graduate about 7 times. Was able to take about 20 credits and transfer it and to school. So I ended up graduating with my bachelor's in 3 years because
Oh,
of the Theological Institute,
that's a
and
blessing.
received so much knowledge. And I'm just so grateful. So thank you so much, Lady Bryant, for all that you do. Any last words you want to leave?
Just thank you for inviting me. I hope anything that I've said, I hope that it was beneficial to someone, enlightening for someone. And anytime you need me, I'm here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lady Bryant. We appreciate you. And thank you all for watching and tuning in and sharing a space and time with us. We truly appreciate you. To all of our followers that have been tuning in, thank you so much for your support. Continue to share the message. We want to get this message out to as many people to continue uplifting lives and empowering people. Thank you all. We'll see you again next week. Be safe, stay warm. It's cold now, and stay connected. We'll see you soon.